Okay, so with that, we'll get started here, and I will turn things over to Justin McBride to get us started on section views in CAD.
All right, thanks, Justin. Well, let me show my screen here so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Okay, can you see that, Justin?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so backing up, that first question Jim had on the issues with the drawing. Yes, this drawing was saved in 2017, and what we found is that any version of CAD that's earlier than 2017, even 2016, does not like any drawings that were saved in 2017. And I don't know, any way to make this work. It's just some sort of compatibility issue. And I know if you're on NRCS, the latest version I think that they have, or that everyone is getting if they haven't got it already, is 2016. So basically anything I do in 2017 I can't send you if you only have 2016 or earlier. I'm using 2017 because I'm kind of testing it out for us to make sure things still work, and eventually in the next few months I'll move to 2018. So it's just something we kind of have to fight through. If you're not able to open this because you don't have 2017, don't worry about it. I mean, you can do all the same stuff in 2016, 2015, and I believe even 2014. So all of the commands should be the same. All right, so as Justin said, today is the section on section views, and this is kind of like the last step of design before we're done and we can put everything together on the final plan set. So far I've created a surface, I've set a waterway alignment on there, I've created a corridor, I've created first, before that I created a profile from the alignment, so I got the existing ground, and you can see that in the top right here. If I scroll up this grid right here, that's the profile that I created. It's got the green line is the existing ground. The dark red line, I believe, is the right bank. The lighter red line up at the top here, that is the left bank, and then the blue line is my design grade. That is where the center of the waterway will be built to, okay? So I've already done those steps, and those were previous webinars. Get back out here. And then from that profile, we built a corridor, and then we built a corridor surface. Now I have turned my corridor off over here on the surface. It's there, I just have turned it off by going to the Home tab and picking the corridor layers, which I believe are C-Road Core. Okay, so if you can see right here, these three layers are what's default to the corridor layer. So if I turn this one on, for instance, okay, nothing happened. I usually have to redraw it because it's kind of a big process. So again, type in REA to redraw, hit enter. Uh-oh, there we go. My CAD was kind of lagging behind. So you should see now these purple lines here that follow the alignment of the waterway. That's the corridor. But it's kind of confusing with all those lines on there. That's why I turn it off once I've done with the corridor part of it. So I'll go back down to C-Road Core, if I can find it. And that was the top one. And I'll turn it off. Okay. And again, I got to redraw my drawing to get those purple lines off. And there they go. All right, so we've done all those steps up here, and then after the corridor, I went ahead and created a finished grade surface, and again, that was in the previous webinar. It's the very last step there, so you can review that if you need to, but I only have that finished grade surface turned on. I turned off the existing ground point surface. I've turned off the corridor surface, and I only have on the finished grade surface that has on the outside the original grade contours, and then on the inside where the alignment goes, it created sort of like a waterway section there. You can see how it points everything upstream. That means that I built a waterway into the surface, okay? So that's the only one I have turned on. That's where we're at this point. We can go ahead and jump right into the notes. If you don't have these, they're in PDF form, I think, on the GoToWebinar screen. You can open that up, or you can just follow this. The first step is to create sample lines. And basically what these are lines that go perpendicular to the alignment at certain stations, and think of it like a profile that goes perpendicular to the grass waterway. So it's going to show the shape of that grass waterway in a cross-section form. Okay, so to do that, I go up to the ribbon on the Home tab, and I push this button called Sample Lines. Okay, and then you can see on my screen I have a square box that's telling me to select the alignment, which is this black line. Let me zoom in here so you can see it. Okay, it's this black line right here. I'm going to select that. And I just got this box that popped up at the top left-hand corner of the screen. Okay, this is the creation sample line box. You can change some of the attributes here if you want. We don't need to do that because it defaults to what we want, but that's what we're going to use to create these. So let me zoom out, and I want to type in all the stations where I want to create cross sections. Now in grass waterway design, and I have to remember what this is, but I believe that you are not required to put cross sections on a grass waterway set of plans. You are, however, required to do a red line check after it's built of some sort of cross sections every 300 feet, at every grade change, at every individual waterway branch. So there's several spots where you have to do cross sections as checks. You don't necessarily have to put them on the plan. You just have to have them in your survey book. However, most districts find out that it is simpler if you just go ahead and put the cross sections on the plans. That way you have something to write on after you do your final construction check. So using that knowledge, I'll go ahead and just do one every 300 feet here, just for simplicity, and I'm going to start at station 100, because if I were to start at station 0, you can see my cross section wouldn't look too good. Okay, it just doesn't have enough information there. So I want to start where I get a good cross section. I'll start at station 100, and what I do is I can either zoom in and select station 100, which is right here, and I can snap to it if I had my snap turned on, which I don't right now, or I can just type in 100. Okay, so if I type in 100, you should be able to see at the bottom of my screen there, I typed in 100. If I hit enter, okay, then it's asking me how wide I want the left swath, which is basically saying how far out to the left do I go to sample points from the surface. And this can be very dependent on the waterway size, dependent on how big your surface is, things like that. I just either do 50 or sometimes 65. It doesn't really matter. Your cross sections, if you use the ODA style, is still going to go out to 65 feet. But just so we get all the information, I'll go ahead and type in 65 on the left, and I'll hit enter. And I'll type in 65 on the right, and hit enter. Okay, that's it. You should be seeing right now on my screen a blue line that goes perpendicular to the black alignment line. Okay, that's a single sample line. That's where my information for the cross section is going to come from. Now it's asking me to specify a different station if I'd like to at the bottom. So let me zoom back out here, and I'll just keep going down the line, and I'll just go every 300 feet. So the next one would be 400 feet. Hit enter. Again, 65 feet on the left. Hit enter. 65 on the right. Hit enter. Okay, there's another blue line. I'll go 300 more feet, which is 700, station 700. So 700, hit enter. 65 feet on the left, hit enter. 65 on the right, hit enter. And my last one is going to be station 1000. So 1, 2, 3, hit enter. 65 on the left, hit enter. And 65 on the right, hit enter. Okay, now to get out of this, I can either right-click or I can hit escape. So I'll do one of those. And that got rid of the dialog box at the top left. And you can see I now have four blue lines here that are my sample lines across this surface. Okay? That's it for the sample lines anyhow. Okay, you should always save after each step. I'm not going to do that. but I hope it doesn't crash. But this is pretty simple. You can do this fairly quick, so I can redo it if it does crash. But the next step is to create section views. Again, fairly simple. You go up to the ribbon, and there's a button here that says Section Views, and you click that. You go down to create multiple section views, because I have 4 stations, which I'm going to do cross sections at. Then you should get this dialog box pop up. This is the Create Multiple Section Views dialog box. Okay. If you follow along the steps, we're on step 2B now. I just want to make sure I select the proper alignment that I'm creating these sections from, which in this case we're only doing waterway, so we only have one alignment. But if you have multiple, you may have several on here. Okay. Just make sure you pick the right one, and make sure you pick the sample group that corresponds with that particular alignment. So if you have multiple alignments, you may have more than one sample line group. Okay, but in this case we only have one. The next step is to make sure that the style is set to ODA DSWC. Again, this is my style. If you have the file we sent out at the beginning of all these webinars, you should have the style in there. If not, I can send this to you. You can upload it in there. But this is what I use. If you have something different, no big deal. If you want your cross-section to look different, we'll talk about that here at the end. But for now, let's stick with this one. And I don't need to change anything else. This right here, where it says section view name, that I'm going to leave that as defaulted, because what that'll do is it picks the station and it puts that station at the top of the cross-section view. So like at station 300, it would say 300 at the top, 3 plus 0, 0. And I think that's simple enough to keep it on there, so I'll leave it that way. Okay, I'll click the next button. And on this one, I just want to make sure for my placement options, I want to pick a draft. But again, if you're good enough to where you have a style set up for a production thing to where you put up cross sections, they go right where they're supposed to go on the plans, okay, by all means use that. I haven't done that. That's too much for me to figure out, but it's easy enough. Just select draft and they'll all be on the screen. You can sort of move them around later. Make sure the group plot style is at basic. You can do standard. If you have your own plot style, you can use that too, but for now we'll use basic. And I'll click the next button at the bottom. Okay, this next step, I want to make sure I click user specified. This is just the offset range. This is determine how wide your section views are going to be. So in this case, I want 65 feet to the right and 65 feet to the left. That is what the old profile, or not profile, the old cross-section grid used to be, 65 feet to the right, 65 feet to the left. So I'm trying to keep this as close to that old cross-section grid as possible. Now, if you wanted one bigger and if you want to play around with it, that's fine. This is something we can edit at each individual one later in the process. So for now, I'll just leave it as 65 left and 65 right. I'll hit next. For the elevation range, what we do is we want this on automatic because each cross-section is going to have different elevations on it. So this will pick the best elevations that will go with each cross-section. So we're going to hit next. Okay, this is the point where you have to make sure that you're sampling the right surfaces. So at this point, you may have 3 or 4 different surfaces out there. You just want to make sure you're sampling the right one. What I want is I want the surface that has the existing ground that's out there before we do any work, and then I want the finished ground, the one we designed, where to where it's got the shape to where it should be once it's properly constructed. Okay. But as you can see, I only have one surface listed right here. It doesn't have my finished ground surface listed. Sometimes it brings in, if you play with this a lot, it'll sometimes be automatically loaded. Sometimes you'll have 3 or 4 surfaces in here. You just want to make sure if that's the case, make sure you only check mark the ones that are your existing ground and your finished ground, okay? But in this case, I don't have finished ground in here, so I'm going to have to load that in once I'm done with this process. And that's okay. If you follow the notes, I believe this is step M, or step 2M sub I, it's just saying skip to the end and we'll add in surfaces after we're done, okay? So again, I'm going to make sure my style for this one says existing ground, and I'm going to click create section views. Okay, I just have to find a blank spot in the model space and just click there, and you should see that I have now 4 section views on here. Now this is an important thing right now. It's kind of hard to read on screen in the model space. Once you bring this into your plan, I mean, you can play around with the size of the text and things like that, but the issue why this is overlapping is the fact that I have my scale down at the bottom right set to 1 inch equals 40 feet. So it's hard to read at that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that to 1 inch equals 6 feet, which I know you can't see this right now, but I'm setting it to 1 inch equals 6 feet. Okay, it just made the text smaller and made it much more clean to see. Okay, so if I zoom in, you should be able to see this cross section. You can see I'm 65 feet to the right, 65 feet to the left, and this may be kind of hard to see. Let me turn off my tool space so that I can get a bigger screen for you. Okay. So at the top of this station 100, you can see it says 1 + 0, 0. It's got the elevation on the left, the elevation on the right. This was my best attempt to make it like the old standard cross-section grids. Okay, it's not exactly the same, but it's close. All right. If you have a different one where you don't like going 1 to 1, you like going 1 to 4 elevation, or just use whatever you typically use, whatever your contractors understand. Okay, but I like these bigger ones 1 to 1 because they're easier to put text on them. So I don't have to fit so many so many cross-section things per sheet. I have more room to put text in there. And by 1 to 1, what I mean is each big grid, so if I zoom in here, each major line is 5 feet apart. So on the left, the elevation is 5 feet up, and on the right, the horizontal location is 5 feet left and right. Now again, you may not like this, you may not think it shows you much, but again, what do you really need cross-sections for? You just need to see what the elevations are. You don't really care what the shape looks like on screen. You just want to see elevations. So again, you can use this, you can use your own, that's okay. At the bottom I here have defaulted in my style, it tells you from this cross-section, and it's hard to see, I might be able to select it here, see if you can see it a little bit easier. Okay, that line I just selected, that's the cross-section of the existing ground that's out there right now at station 100. Okay. At the bottom here, what this says is left and right. This is if I'm looking upstream. Okay, so if I'm looking uphill, I'm saying 10 feet to the left would be as if I'm facing uphill on the waterway. Okay, so that's important. This information is on the screen. All right. So what I say, I didn't have the finished grade surface on here. So right now this doesn't tell us anything. This only tells us what's out there right now. So I have to add in the finished grade surface. And if you follow the steps, at the very end of step 2, it says all I have to do is select the section view grid, which is just the grid. And at the top, my ribbon should have changed to the section view grid properties. I just have to click the sample more sort button, and then I'll get this dialog box to where it's asking me to add additional surfaces that are in my drawing. So in this case, I have a combined FG, I have the corridor that was built, and then I have the corridor surface. But again, the one that I want is the combined FG. That is the finished grade surface that we created in the previous webinar. Okay, so that added that over there to the right with the existing ground. I just want to make sure I change my style for the combined FG finished ground to the finished ground style. Okay, click OK, and then click OK. Okay, hit escape so I don't have anything selected anymore. And you can see it added some stuff here. It added automatic labels, which in my CAD, that's how it sets up. It does that anyhow. I don't use these these automatic labels. It's not that they're not correct, it's just that they're kind of spaced out sort of weird, and I don't really like the words they say, so I go ahead and delete them, and I create my own labels. So I'll select them, I'll hit delete, I'll get them out of there, I'll get these grades out of here, I don't need those either. I'll hit delete. So that right now you can see when I zoom in, I have two lines now on my finished cross section. This dashed line right here, okay, if I select that, it should tell me, I thought it would tell me which one it is. Okay, if I hover over it right there, you can see that that's my existing ground line. That's the dashed line. This bottom line is the cut that I'm making in the existing ground. That's the solid line, okay? That has more of a parabolic shape. That's my grass waterway. That's what I want. Okay. So now I've created a cross section. And I could do those steps. I could delete the lines over here and get them all nice and neat, but I'm just going to focus on this one for right now so that I can kind of explain what the next step is. This cross section doesn't tell me much. Again, because it's a one-to-one scale, it would be hard to get the exact elevation from the bottom of this cross section. Okay, I can't really tell. This small square right here is 1 foot. Okay, so where is that? Is that 1.1, 1.2? I don't exactly know. Okay, so I have to put some elevation labels on here. It's a fairly simple process. Okay, again, all I do is I just have to select the grid, and then up in the ribbon there should be something that popped up that says Add View Labels. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to select Offset Elevation. Okay, now I have a cursor where I can start selecting things on the screen, but to be more precise, I'm going to go ahead and use the snap features. So down here at the bottom right, I'm going to turn on only the I think is the endpoint. Yeah, that's what I want, the endpoint snap section. Okay, so I'll turn that on. And what I'll do is I'll start at the center line, which if I scroll down here, you can see 0 is the center line. Okay, I'll just put a label right there. The only place this will snap, if I move my cursor out here, it doesn't snap to anywhere in the grid. Okay, it'll only snap to where there's endpoints, which is on our designed finished grade surface. Okay, so I'm going to use the snap feature to help me out, and I'm going to snap right here to the center. Okay, you can see something popped up. I'm going to go to the right and figure out where it snaps to next, which is right here at 10, which should be right. Keep going to the right. 15, keep going to the right. 20, and the last place where this grass waterway meets the existing ground is a little bit further outside 20. It's like 21.2 or something like that. So I'll click there. I'll do the same thing on the left. Go over to where it first snaps to, which again is 10, and then 15, then 20. Okay, then this particular cross section requires some fill on the outside, so I'll just snap somewhere to where I think the fill would meet the existing ground, so about right there. Okay. Okay, just hit escape, or I can use the right click feature. Okay, hit escape again so I don't have anything selected. All right, so now I have labels on here. This tells me it's at station 100, 0 feet from the center line, okay, which would be the center line exactly. It's telling me that the design elevation should be 1088.1, okay? But I don't really like how these are right on the line, so I want to drag them out a little bit. So I can select each label like this, and I can pick this grip point right here, the square of it, and I can click that, and I'm going to turn off my snap, so it doesn't snap anywhere I don't want it to. I'm just going to drag it up to the top. Okay. What it's doing now is it just put that up towards the top, but it has an extension that goes down to the circle that tells me it's right here in the center of the grass waterway. So if I follow that point right there, I follow that line, I know that that elevation should be 1088.1. Okay? I can do the same thing with all of these. I can drag them up so that it's a little bit easier to see on the section view. And in this one I'll drag up, and on this right one I can drag up, I can select it, drag up, and then drag it to the right, just like that. Okay? Do the same thing on the left side, just drag it up. It's a bit more work than the automatic labels, but again, this gives me exactly what I want to know. It tells me, okay, right here I should be 20 feet to the left of the center line. That should be my finished elevation. Okay, that's something I can go out to the field, I can measure from the center line, and I can say, hey, you're 2/10 too low, or you're a half a foot too high, you know, something like that. Okay, that'll tell me basically what I need to know to tell the contractor to finish the job. Okay. Then when you get to the end, you can have the waterway built, and 5-10 years down the road, whenever it's got to be reviewed, people can go out there and they can redline on the plans, and they can say, okay, in a 5-year review, this elevation is now 1088.2. Okay, you can redline that right on there, or if the plans change when you're building it, you can redline that on there as well. It just gives you a nice place to write that in. Okay, so let me zoom out. That's what my finished cross-section looks like. It's not exactly like it was in the old days, but it gives you all the necessary information. Okay, that's it, guys. That's the last step. Now I would do this for all 4 of these cross sections right here. I'm not going to do that right now. Again, I would delete these green automatic ones, and then I would go ahead and put these manual labels in. But I'm not going to do that for you right now. This is enough to show you how to do it. Then I can move these section view grids. I just selected it, and there's this blue grip button right down here on the bottom. If I push that, I can move this grid wherever I want. Turn off my orthogonal. Okay, I can move it over here, move it over there, wherever I need to put it, so that on the plans it goes up and down. What I usually do is I stack 3 up on top of one another. So for instance, if this was station 1 plus 00, and then down here station 400, I'll stack that one. And then station 700, I'll stack that one under 400. So on my set of plans, I'll have three cross sections on one set of sheets. Okay, that's it. That's it for cross sections. There are a couple things you can do. Even at this point, you can change it as needed. So in the beginning, I taught you how to create sample lines. Okay, so let's go back out here to my sample lines. Each of these are 65 feet to the right and 65 feet to the left. I can change this at any time. Okay, so let's go up to station 400. Let's just use 100. That's what we've been working with. Okay, let's just say I want the sample line to only go out 35 feet for whatever reason. Let's just put it right here. Okay, not a big deal. It should have updated. If I go back down to my cross section, let me find it. Okay. All right, so what did it do? I just took the right side back 30 to 17 feet or whatever that was. But what it is right now is you can't see any of the data beyond that point that I took it back. Okay, so this is dynamic. You can change the length of them, you can change where they go, I can change the station, and it'll still give me all the information I want. Okay, now in that case I wouldn't do that, but I just wanted to show you you can move those at any time, and they should automatically adjust to your section view. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and drag that back out to somewhere. It doesn't really matter. Let's go back up here, and let's drag it back out somewhere out here. We'll go even farther. Let's go out this way. Okay, so I went even further, which is interesting because my cross section is only 65 foot long, so it didn't draw the profile beyond 65 feet, even though I probably drew it I don't know, 90 feet out there. It only drew it as far or as wide as the cross-section view is. Okay, so that's kind of a nice feature. You can sample as big as you want, but the only thing that's going to be on the screen here is what fits within the width of the section view grid. Okay, so those are dynamic. The other thing is you can play around with the section views. If you don't like this style, or if you do this and for some reason the original ground is too high, it's up here at 1,100 and you can't really see anything, or if it's too low, or if you need a wider width, this stuff you can change at any time. I can select this profile view, I can go up to the profile view group properties, and I can change the style, I can change the properties. I don't think this is what I wanted. Let me get out of this for a second. Let's go to section view properties. That's what I wanted right here. Section view properties. Okay, so at any time I can change the offsets. I can say, okay, on this one I drew the right out there 90 feet, so let's go 90 feet to the right. Hit OK, and it just made it out there 90 feet where I can see where I drew that sample line to the right. Okay, so I can change this at any time. Let's go back to section view properties. I can change the elevation. Let's say for this one I want it to be 175 for the minimum elevation, and let's just say 111.10, and hit OK. And it just made my grid just a little bit taller by 5 feet. Okay, so all of this stuff you can change at any time. It doesn't change any of the text or anything like that. It just changes the size of it. If you do want to change the text, then you're talking about getting into style preferences and style editing. Okay, so if you have your own, that you can sort of play around with your own styles and things. I don't know if we're going to do a webinar on the different ways you can edit all the styles, because you have styles for profile views, you have styles for cross-section views, you have styles for surfaces, styles for the alignments. You have those for everything. So that's kind of a whole other topic, is changing styles. But in this case, if you did want to do it, just go ahead and select the section view and go up to properties and push the drop down there. You can drop down to edit section view style. And this is where I can change anything on the section view. So for right now I have the minor lines on the screen. If I wanted to take them off because you can't really see much, let's scroll down here, and right here's my grid horizontal minor. Let's take that off. And my grid vertical minor, let's take that off. Hit OK, and you can see on all my section views it took all those minor grids off. Okay, which is fine. If you want to put this on the plan because it's easier to read, that's okay too. I mean, it's really based on your preference. I have all the information here I need, all the elevations and stuff, and this should be scalable. So if you put these on the plans, you know, this is 1:1, so you should be able to put it on scale where you can say 1 inch equals 5 feet on here, or however you do it. But it should all be scalable to where you can use some sort of ruler or scale on this to get certain elevations if you need to. But again, I can change many things in the style. If I go to the graph, I can change the width of it. Right now it's 1:6. Let's just say I want vertical exaggeration, I want to be 10. Let's just see what that does. Okay, that changed some crazy stuff there. Look how big this section view is. I've got now where my grass waterway is like a U shape. Some people like this. Okay, some people say, well, you can see more of where the cuts are and where the fills are. Sure. Doesn't really help me with my elevations much. I mean, I still have the same information. If I go up here to where station 100 was, so it's just kind of hard to see. Let me see if I can't move it. Let's change station 100. Let's move it over here. It should very well tell me that right here's my center line elevation is still 1088.1. That doesn't change any of that. It's just that it's a little easier to see in a technician's eyes, and maybe a little bit easier to see in the contractor's eyes to see where cuts and fills go. So that's your call. I don't like them, but it's really whatever your preferences are, okay? So I'm going to change that back because I can't stand looking at it right now. Let's go to style, change it back to 1. Whoop. Okay, there. That's back to what we started with. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys. Again, these steps, everything I've showed you here will get you cross-section, usable cross-sections, okay, usable data. How you like to present it, changing the styles, that's up to you. I'm not an expert on this kind of stuff. I can kind of sort of guide you through there on, for instance, it was not easy getting this right here to say elevation in feet. I had to get it to say that. I had to get it to put it to the right distance to the left of the grid. Same thing down here at the bottom. It was not easy to get the left and right to be here. You just have to change little minutia things in the style programs to get that to work. So it takes some expertise. Again, I'm not an expert, but I was able to get this done, so it's not terribly tough. You just have to kind of play with it. The only last thing is, once you do have something style-wise you like, just make sure you go ahead and upload that into your QNew section, which, if you remember from the first webinar that we did on building surface, I think we did this anyhow. All you have to do is save this this style or this this drawing sheet, and then just go up here to your file, and you want to go down to options, and I have to remember where this is at, but I believe you go over to files and you'll scroll down to template settings, and right here is your default template for QNew. This is the drawing that opens up every time you open up CAD, and you just change this to wherever you save your most up-to-date, or you can upload stuff by importing features. That's also possible. And those are things we can help you out if you have any issues with that, but I won't get into that for this webinar.
Hey, Justin.
Okay, guys.
You had a couple just questions here. I was also going to show a couple of things too. Let me steal back the view for a second. Justin showed you that, and this is a different drawing I have here, but he showed you a couple of things. Oh boy, just shut that off there. If I go back to the sample line, pull up the little menu there. One of the things I wanted to show you is there's multiple ways of drawing those sample lines. You can do them at a particular station, as Justin just showed you, and name that on screen. You can also just do a range of stations, and it pulled my window off the screen here, where you can just go on in and enter a starting and ending station, the swaps, left and right, the widths, and increments along the tangents, curves, and spirals. We generally don't use curves and spirals, but I can do them every 50 feet, every 100-foot station, however I want to do that, and it will automatically do it the entire length of your waterway, every 100 or 25 feet, whatever you specify. You can do them at very specific stations, starting, ending, so you can program that in there. For some reason you want it to do a whole series of them. I'll go ahead and cancel that. Justin showed you how you can manipulate on screen the sample lines. They do not have to be perpendicular to your alignment. Now generally we would do that, but for some reason, if you wanted to, they can be drawn to be skewed if you needed to do that for some reason, like I just did there. The other thing is, when you go to plot your plan view in your drawing, you don't need this blue line showing you anything. So if you go to your settings, there should be a section on sample lines. Under sample line style, and this is just another different way of getting to it. I'll go to my style, edit it. I'll just make those two lines and vertices invisible. Apply that, and those sample lines have gone away. They're just background material that you really don't need for any purpose other than developing the drawing itself. Okay, that was just kind of a few things I wanted to show you. If you have any more questions, feel free to type them in. And if you're okay, Justin, I'll switch back to you.
Yeah, that's fine. I think I see a couple more questions. The first one here is, could you put them in different viewports? So I assume that was on when I was moving around so I get 3 to stack up. Sure. I mean, yeah, you can put it on there where on your plans you have three separate viewports to where you have 3 separate things. That way they don't have to be stacked on top of each other in the space. Sure, that's fine too, and that may even be a better way to go about it. But it's really your preference. That's definitely a possibility. The next one. Should we be trying to get more uniform as an agency so plans are readable by any technician? Yes. The problem is how many people do things the same every time. That's the biggest thing. My styles, you know, some people like them, some people don't. The problem is you can't get those 2 people to agree on what they want. So, yeah, you're probably right, Tyler. If we can get someone to lead that effort, I'm fine with it. But until then, we kind of have to do our own thing as we can. So. Can you add a data band to the section view showing EG and FG surfaces? If so, or not surface, elevations. If so, any advantage? So I did not talk about data bands. Data bands are interesting. They are where you create this cross section. You have this automatic data that will appear up here, down here in the bottom. Okay, and the data could say anything. It could say certain widths out from the station, what the finished grade, what the design. Yeah, that is definitely something you could do. I don't. I think about what I need to know when I'm checking. I don't really care what the elevation of the existing ground is. I just need to know what the finished grade is. Now, if someone's checking a plan before it's approved, that may be helpful. Yeah, that's certainly possible. I just didn't get into it here. Cross sections are kind of a questionable thing, whether depending on what kind of data needs to be in there anyhow. So. Data bands are just simply if I select this this profile view, or keep calling it profile view, section view, and I go up to section view properties, I can go over here to bands, and if I have my own set of styles created, I can go ahead and do that. I don't know, we'll see what happens. I'll go ahead and hit apply and add and see what happens. Okay, yeah, so data bands, just put information on here, down here at the bottom, that basically says, okay, at this center line at station 100, the existing ground elevation is 1089.24, which seems to be close to what it is on the pro. So that looks to be right. The problem is, since I don't have my own styles right now, I don't have these words where I want them to go. I don't have the spacing I like. So it just takes a little more work on setting up style. Again, if you want to do that, go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you. So, all right. After data bands, any possibility of getting the same drawing saved to an earlier version of CAD? I would be interested in getting data sets for the earlier webinars. That was from Jim. Since I've already saved this in 2017, I don't know of a way to drop it back into 2016. I can I don't know. I'll try to save it to a previous version and see if that works, Jim. But I really don't know. It's really screwy on how they separated 2017 and 2016. The styles of styles and settings and preferences, all that stuff can be put in 2016, no problem. But the actual information, and particularly in this case, the survey data for this project does not import very well from one version to the next. So I can work with you on that, getting you the style and preferences. If you have the original file we use in the first webinar, building surfaces, it should have all the same styles and stuff in here. So it should still have the ODA styles and settings in there. But we can send that out in an email at a later time too. So.
Yeah, we'll try and see if we can figure that out and get that out to people. We wanted to send the actual drawing files that we're using in the webinar, so that if you wanted to follow along later and try and practice and replicate what Justin's shown, you could do that if you didn't have a good survey file and all these styles already set up on your own.
But But the good thing is that all the steps, again, all the steps and how you do things from 2014 to 2017 are all the same. So if you're in your office and you just did a grass waterway survey and you have that data with you and you have 2015 or 2016, go ahead and just put that in there and start from the first webinar and start plugging stuff in and see if it works. If it doesn't, give us a call. I mean, we can help you out, or your engineers in your areas can help you out too. But hopefully this will just give you the basic steps to get things done. I don't see, is there any more questions, Justin, that we missed?
I think that's all, and we're getting close to the time here. So this is about getting close to the end of this whole series on the basic steps of waterway construction plans. I think we'll program another or schedule another webinar or two here to finish things up on putting the drawings all together now that you have the majority of the pieces, corridors, assemblies, profiles, alignments, and now cross sections into a drawing. We'll try and cover some of the basics. Justin already started touching on styles, and we'll talk a little bit further than the original basics webinar we did a while back. And as you've probably seen from my emails, we're moving into discussing GIS and some other technical matters. So we'll try and put these out about once a month, or maybe more, maybe less. We'll see how things go depending on our schedules.
The other thing was, did you want to give a plug-in about your CAD meeting at the Federation meeting?
There was an email that just came out, I believe, from Mindy. If you're on the All Ohio list, just advertising a technician session at the Federation meeting, which a couple of Area 5 staff members are working on assembling and coordinating a little discussion on CAD. We'll talk about some of this at that session, and try and glean some information for developing future communication so we can share knowledge, share information. I think we've got a lot of experience amongst the technicians around the state, and also various knowledge. So if we can put that together, I think we're finding that we can get all of us up to speed in order to do what we need to do just by sharing information. We also want to possibly look at if we can answer the question that I believe Tyler had about making some of this consistent. Not mandated by any means, but taking the styles in the template on an electronic file that Justin showed and comparing and contrasting them with some others. Many other districts and areas have developed similar ones. See if we can put those together and come up with a statewide version of a base template, electronic template that could be the foundation for drawings. You'd be free to change that, obviously, but it would be a starting point to save a lot of work for everyone. You can see that on the screen right now how Justin had the style set up for the cross section, and it looks beautiful. It was simple and took no work to do. The bands he has not set up, and for some reason CAD likes to default to crazy colors and sizes and everything, and he's going to have to take a lot of work to get that fixed if he wants to print this. We don't want everyone having to do that every time, so if we can get some of that set up, it would be a real time saver, I think. That and among other things I think we're going to talk about, but that'll be at the Federation meeting.
I think the big one too, and I'll send this out at the next webinar when we talk about putting plans together, the other thing people want, talking about standard drawings, is they'd like to have something where they have a standard cover sheet like this, standard plan view, profile, cross-section stuff. For instance, this is my standard profile section where it already has this information here. That stuff we can talk about at that meeting. And at the next webinar, hopefully I have something to where I can send out in 2016 and 2014 versions, and hopefully get somewhere standardized before we start pairing up in groups and seeing if we can come up with a final product. But hopefully we can do that as well. Is there anything else to add, Justin?
Yes, that's correct. Those are some of the other things I think that we wanted to discuss there at the meeting session, was not just the styles, but also some of those other particular items. I think that's about it, and it's getting close to 9:30, so we'll shut this webinar down if there are no further questions. Thanks again for attending. Everybody enjoy your holiday weekend coming up here, and we will see you next time.
All right. See you later.
Thank you.